So today we're going to read about the physiology of digestion. So first of all, we need to know what is the meaning of digestion. So digestion means it is the process of conversion of complex and insoluble compounds of the food, such as carbohydrate, protein and fat, into simple and soluble form. It means that glucose, amino acids, fatty acids and glycerol with the help of enzymes. It means it is the process of conversion of complex and insoluble compounds into simple and soluble compounds with the help of enzymes. Okay, so basically what happens is that carbohydrate gets converted into glucose, protein gets converted into amino acids, and fat gets converted into fatty acids and glycerol. These are the complex molecules which are insoluble, and these are the simpler molecules which are soluble. Now we need to read how these get converted into these. That is all about the physiology of digestion. So basically digestion starts from the mouth. So there are two types of digestion: physical digestion and chemical digestion. So there are two types of digestion: physical and chemical. Now physical digestion is very simple. It's just that the large sized food, it is converted into smaller pieces. It means the larger lumps of food is converted into the smaller pieces with the help of teeth in the mouth. The teeth masticates the food, okay, and then it gets converted into smaller size. Now it moves towards the stomach, where stomach also does some muscular movement. So in the mouth the food mixes with the saliva. Now saliva is an acidic fluid of about pH 6.8, and a normal person produces about 1 to 1.5 liters of saliva per day. Basically it contains 98% water and 2% dense residue. Among the dense residue there are salivary amylase, okay, and lingual lipase. You can call it amylase and lipase. This is called salivary amylase because it is in saliva, and lingual lipase because it lies on the tongue, and the term for the tongue is lingual, so it's called lingual lipase. If you get confused, you can directly call it amylase and lipase. So we don't have to write all this description here. Just need to write that the food mixes with the saliva, and saliva contains salivary amylase and the lingual lipase. Now what happens is the saliva mixes with the food, and some amount of the starch, it means carbohydrate, and some amount of the fat gets digested, only a very little amount. So this salivary amylase, it converts the carbohydrate. Now carbohydrate contains starch. You can write carbohydrate or you can directly write starch, anything you can write, okay. So carbohydrate gets converted into maltose. We know that the carbohydrate gets converted into maltose, and then the maltose gets converted into glucose. So first it gets converted into maltose, and fat, always fat gets directly converted into fatty acids and glycerol. So lipase converts the fat into fatty acids and glycerol. Okay, this is all about the digestion in mouth. Now the food conducts through the esophagus and reaches the stomach. So now we're going for digestion in stomach. Now what happens in that food that conducts through the esophagus and reaches the stomach? That food mixes with the gastric juice. The stomach produces the gastric juice, which mixes with the food, and gastric juice contains 4 elements. The first of all is HCl, very important, one of the most important, HCl, and another one is pepsinogen. You need to remember this thing, pepsinogen. Another is prorenin. Now remember, here will be double N. RENIN, renin is in kidney. This is double N, prorenin, and it also contains gastric lipase. Now why it is called gastric lipase? Because it is present in gastric juice. It was present on tongue, so it was lingual lipase. Now it is present in stomach, so gastric lipase. You can directly call it lipase. Now we'll see one by one what is the role of all these 4. So first of all, HCl. Now HCl has one of the most important roles. First of all, it kills the harmful germs which are present in the food. Now second role is that it converts the inactive pepsinogen into active pepsine. Now whenever you see there is gen, it means that it is inactive. Remember, it is always inactive. So it converts the inactive pepsinogen into active pepsine. Now what is the role of pepsine? Pepsine is used to convert the protein into peptides. We know that protein gets converted into peptides and then peptides get converted into amino acids. So first protein gets converted into peptides with the help of this pepsine. Now there is a trick. See, in mouth carbohydrate and fat gets digested, in stomach the fat and protein gets digested. Here protein is not digested, here carbohydrate is not digested. Okay, so see, protein gets converted into peptides. Now another role of HCl is there are three roles of HCl. First this, second this, and another role. This is first, second, and the third rule is that it converts the inactive prorenin into active renin. Prorenin into renin. Now what is the role of renin again? Again the role of renin is that it converts the protein into peptides, but here renin converts a slightly different type of protein. That protein is called casein. Okay, now this casein is known as the milk protein. The milk that we drink, it contains casein, so it is called milk protein. Now what this renin does is that it converts the casein, which is also a type of protein, okay, it converts it into paracasein. Now what happens is that this paracasein again gets converted into peptides with the help of what? With the help of this pepsine. With the help of this pepsine. I'll give you again the summary. See, first of all, what happens is that HCl kills the harmful germs. Now another role of HCl is that it converts the inactive pepsinogen into pepsine. Now the work of pepsine is the conversion of protein into peptides. So protein gets converted into peptides. Now what happens is that the third role of HCl is conversion of prorenin into active renin. Now renin converts a special type of protein called casein, the milk protein, into paracasein. Now paracasein is also a protein, so it gets converted into peptides with the help of pepsine, because the role of pepsine is conversion of protein into peptides. So paracasein again gets converted into peptides. It was not much confusing, just you need to see 2-3 times and you will get the point. Okay, and the last thing I said, that protein and fat gets digested, so the work of gastric lipase, now you know it is conversion of fat into fatty acids and glycerol, same thing. Okay, now we'll go for the digestion in duodenum. So in the duodenum receives the hepatopancreatic duct. It means that in the duodenum, the duct of both liver, hepato, and of the pancreas, both of them open in the duodenum. Okay, so it receives the hepatopancreatic duct. Now it means that the bile which is produced by the liver as well as the pancreatic juice which is produced by the pancreas, they both mix with the food. It means that the food mixes with the bile and the pancreatic juice. Now the role of bile is that it neutralizes the acidic chyme. Chyme means the food that is passing towards the duodenum, semi-solid. That food is called chyme, chyme, chyme. So now see, the saliva mixes with the food in the stomach as well as in the mouth, and in the stomach HCl is also mixed. So saliva is also acidic, HCl is also acidic, so the food became acidic. Now what happens is that this bile, it neutralizes the acidic chyme. It means that it is basic in nature, alkaline in nature, and it neutralizes it, and it also kills the harmful germs. And basically the role of bile is the emulsification of fats. Now what that means, that the digestion of fat, it possesses a problem. It means that fat is not digested very easily. It possesses a problem that fat dissolves poorly in water because they are hydrophobic. Okay, so what happens is that whenever water mixes with this fat, it forms large droplets, which is a big problem to absorb. So these globules must be broken down into smaller pieces so that it mixes with the watery content in the gut. So what happens is that the human liver produces bile. Now this bile, which acts like a dish detergent, it puts a hydrophilic coating on this, and this bile breaks down these fat molecules into smaller pieces, and then it gets absorbed. This is the work of bile. Basically we can write that it helps in emulsification of fat. Emulsification means the breaking down of this larger pieces of the fat into smaller pieces. Okay, so this is all about the bile. Then we'll go for the pancreatic juice. Now pancreatic juice, it is an alkaline fluid of about pH 7.5 to 8.0. Normal person produces 500 to 800 ml per day. It also contains 98% water and 2% salts. Among the salts come, now this we have to remember, comes the trypsinogen. First of all, trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, and then it has amylase and it has lipase. These are all about the pancreatic juice. So we do not need to give this large information, huge information about it. Just a paragraph that it produces bile and pancreatic juice. Bile neutralizes the acidic chyme. It helps in emulsification of fat, and then pancreatic juice contains trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, amylase, and lipase enzymes. Now the work of these four enzymes, basically duodenum is a part of small intestine. If you see the diagrammatic figure, we can find that this is the duodenum, this is the jejunum, and this is the ileum. These three combine and form the small intestine. Okay, so what happens is that the small intestine, it produces an enzyme called enterokinase, which converts the inactive trypsinogen and chymotrypsinogen into active trypsin. So the small intestine produces an enzyme called enterokinase. Now it converts the inactive trypsinogen. See, GEN is added there, it means it is inactive trypsinogen and chymotrypsinogen, okay, into active trypsin and chymotrypsin. Now the work of trypsin and chymotrypsin is that it converts the proteins into polypeptides. Now after completion of this absorption and digestion, I'll tell you one trick to remember this polypeptides, dipeptides, and peptides. Okay, so now let's go with the flow. So trypsin and chymotrypsin, it converts the protein into polypeptides. Okay, now this is the role of trypsin and chymotrypsin. We know the role of amylase, that amylase always converts the carbohydrate into maltose. But one more thing remaining is that this polypeptides is converted. Now polypeptides, it further gets converted into, by this trypsin and chymotrypsin, it gets converted into dipeptides. I'll tell you about this, and it will be easier for you to remember after I tell you one thing, the structure and the trick to remember this. Okay, so see, now the role of amylase, we know carbohydrate gets converted into maltose. That is the role of amylase, into maltose. And the role of lipase, again we know fat gets converted into fatty acids and glycerol. So this is all about the digestion in duodenum. Now what happens is the food further conducts through the duodenum and it reaches the jejunum and ileum. It means it is still in the small intestine. Now what happens is that this small intestine produces intestinal juice. Now this intestinal juice contains maltase, it contains lipase, and it contains dipeptidase, and furthermore sucrase, lactase, and ribonuclease. These all are not necessary for us to write. Okay, so we are going to skip that thing. Why? To make it more confusing. So maltase, lipase, and dipeptidase. And we know, and remember one thing, that whenever there is ASE at last, it is an enzyme. OSE, it is the product which needs to be converted. ASE means enzyme. So see, now maltase converts the maltose. Maltase is enzyme, it converts and OSA is the product that needs to be converted. So maltose gets converted into glucose finally, and then lipase, it converts fat into fatty acids and glycerol. Okay, and finally the dipeptidase, it converts the dipeptidase, it converts the dipeptides into amino acids. Now all this thing gets converted. Okay, now further absorption of the food takes place. Now before the absorption, I'm gonna tell you a trick how to remember all these things. Now see, basically we saw that in the stomach the protein got converted into peptides, but in the duodenum we saw that the protein got converted into polypeptides into dipeptides, and finally the dipeptides into amino acids. Now what's the basic difference between all them is that the structure of protein molecule is somewhat like this. Okay, wait, I'll draw and show you, it will be easier. The structure of protein molecules is somewhat like this. Now what happens is that when it gets broken down into such pieces, then these pieces are known as polypeptides. So this is the protein, this single is a peptide, and these all together are called polypeptides. Now when it gets further broken down into such pieces, then it is called dipeptides, and finally when it gets broken down into such pieces, it is called amino acids. Okay, this is basically what's the difference between peptides, protein, polypeptides, dipeptides and amino acids. But now while writing, you can directly write that the protein gets converted into peptides. No, if it's your wish, if you can remember you can write polypeptides, but if you can't remember, see, it's very simple, you can write in such way. Here it was protein got converted into peptides. Okay, cysteine is also protein got converted into paracysteine into peptides. So in duodenum also you can write that the protein got converted by the help of trypsin and chymotrypsin. Okay, chymotrypsin into peptides instead of writing polypeptides and then polypeptides into dipeptides. You can directly write peptides. Now what happens is that lastly when you write this thing, that peptides get converted into amino acids, you can directly write this peptide got converted into amino acids. Okay, and don't write dipeptidase. If you write this, write peptidase. Okay, this will be much simpler, I know, but if you want to write more informative, then you can write polypeptides into dipeptides in detail. Still, for no confusion, you can directly write, in place of this protein into polypeptides, you can write protein into peptides. And if you write this, you do not need to write this thing. And if you write this peptides one, then you just need to change one thing, is that you need to change here peptides and you need to change here di. You need to remove this di, just peptides into amino acids by peptidases. This will be much simpler, I know, because in stomach also it got converted into peptides and here also it got converted into peptides. It's easier to remember. Okay, so this is all about the digestion. Now comes the absorption. But before that, I saw you the structure of this protein, so I want to show you the structure of the carbohydrate as well, just for information, so that you do not get confused. So see, first of all, what happened? Carbohydrate, suppose this is a bread, okay, containing carbohydrates. So it got converted into smaller pieces in the mouth, and then this carbohydrate, it contains starch molecules. Starch molecules are somewhat like this in structure. Starch molecules. Now these starch molecules got converted into maltose in the mouth. Now the structure of the maltose is somewhat this hexagonal. Okay, 2 in structure, binded together. Okay, this is the maltose, and when it is acted upon by the maltase, it gets converted into glucose. Now glucose is just one hexagon, independent types. This is the glucose. This is basic structure of conversion of the carbohydrate into glucose. Fat का कुछ ऐसा है. See this, if this is the fat, suppose this is the fat, then it gets converted into smaller pieces first, and emulsification, much smaller droplets by emulsification of bile, and then if you enlarge it under the microscope, you will see some of this structure. This is the structure of fat molecules. This is the structure of fat molecules. Now when it gets broken down by lipase, it gets converted into this. This breaks, this separates, and this separates. Now this is called the glycerol, and this is called the fatty acids. So these are the basic structures, just to remember, just the summary of process of digestion of food, so that you do not get confused. Okay, now we'll go for the absorption. Now basically absorption takes place in the small intestine, because small intestine has the villi, which increases its area for absorption. So the intestinal villi, it contains two structures. They are blood capillaries and the lymphatic vessels, or we can call it lacteals. So when you see the villi, if this is the intestine, so villi are present here on both the sides. Okay, if you see in the diagrammatic figure, so this is the intestine, then the villi are present in both the sides. Okay, somewhat like this in both the sides. So the food passes down here inside this, and villi are present on both the sides, so the villi absorbs the food. So the food comes like this, and villi are present. If we enlarge one villus, singular is villus. So if you enlarge one villus, you can see the blood capillaries are there. These are the blood capillaries, and even the lymphatic vessels are there. Lymphatic vessels. Lymphatic vessels means lacteals. It contains the lymph nodes, it contains the lymph vessels. So what happens is that the glucose and amino acids, it means that the carbohydrate and the protein, it gets absorbed by this blood capillaries, but the fat, it means that fatty acids and glycerol, it means that the fat, it gets absorbed by the lymphatic vessels, because lymphatic vessels contains bile, and bile is necessary for the absorption of fat, as I said. So just a small paragraph, but absorption is of two types. There are passive absorption and active absorption. We need to write about the passive and active absorption. So basically, I told you in the last video as well that whenever there is passive absorption, there is no involvement of energy, and it is from higher concentration to lower concentration. So what happens is that when the food comes here inside the small intestine, it contains villi. Now food is here, so high concentration of food is in the intestinal lumen. This is called the lumen. Lumen means this free space. So in the intestinal lumen there is high concentration of the food, but in the villi there is low concentration. So due to passive absorption, the food moves towards the intestinal villi. So energy is not involved in this process, and this continues till the concentration becomes equal on both the sides. So after the concentration becomes equal, no more absorption takes place. So not all the amount of food is absorbed, partial absorption takes place, because after it becomes equal, the remaining amount of food, it does not get absorbed. So only partial absorption takes place in passive absorption, and energy is not involved. This is all about the passive. And then in active absorption, what happens is that we know that the energy is involved in this process, and in this process the food gets absorbed from the lower concentration to the higher concentration. So what happens is that this is the villi, this is the intestinal lumen. Whenever the concentration of food is low in the intestinal lumen and the concentration of food is high in the villi, then what happens? Active absorption takes place. The energy is involved, and the energy involved in this process is basically ATP. So the food gets absorbed from the lower concentration to the higher concentration. Now further active absorption is of two types: active transport and another is endocytosis. So it is all about how this active absorption actually takes place. So in this active transport, what happens is that the carrier molecules which are present in this intestinal lumen, it takes the food towards the villi. The carrier molecules may involve permeases, translocases. These are types of carrier molecules. Translocases. Now what happens is that these carrier molecules attach with the food molecules and they take the food towards the villi and they enter inside the villi. This is about the active transport, but these are for the smaller pieces of the food. In endocytosis, whenever there are larger pieces of food in this intestinal, what happens is that there are larger pieces of the food and these are the villi. Now what happens is that these villi, they extend and they form somewhat vesicles. No, remember one thing, vesicle means circular structures. Okay, so these villi extend and form the circular structures and they engulf the food inside themselves, and that is called endocytosis. We do not need to learn about this in detail, and it's your option. You can write about it or you cannot write about it, but still if you want to get good marks, then you should write about it. And this is all about the absorption and digestion in duodenum and small intestine. In small intestine, both digestion and absorption takes place. Now last, egestion, the removal of undigested food. It means that the feces, the undigested food outside the body, is called egestion. The color of the feces, basically the pale color of the feces, it is due to an enzyme called stercobilin. Not basically enzyme, a chemical called stercobilin. Now how the stercobilin is formed? It is formed by the oxidation of the bile pigment. It is formed by the oxidation of bile. The color of the feces is due to stercobilin formed by the oxidation of bile. And the order of the feces, it is due to the presence of toxic amine, which are indole and scatol, which is formed by the action of bacteria. Basically the bad odor is usually due to the action of bacteria over something. So action of bacteria in amino acids, it forms the toxic amine indole and scatol, and that causes the bad odor of the feces. So about this, it's again your opinion, you can write or not, but you need to write about it if you want to get good marks. And that's all about the physiology of digestion. You can rewind the video if you didn't understand some point, and you can even comment it on the comment section. Thank you, and do not forget to subscribe the channel.